Well, good morning. Good Monday morning. This is my Monday Live, and I'm going to get everything set up and then we're going to get started. And hopefully, you will enjoy today. It's going to be a little bit different uh, as far as the conversation because we're not necessarily going to have a real estate conversation, although it does pertain to real estate. So, um, want to make sure that we are live on all the platforms. Make sure if you're watching us on YouTube or you're watching us in the marketing group, the Marketing Edge, our Facebook group, that you put in the comment section something you did this weekend, a win, something that will truly make you stand out for the rest of this week, something that you can focus on. It's going to be kind of what we're talking about today anyway, but I'm sorry about this. I'm just trying to get everything hooked up. I've got to share the post over into the group because they will not let you go live into Facebook group. So that's always fun, right? Um, okay, so here we go. No. Sorry about that. So if you're watching this on the record, I promise you I'll try to cut this out later. Um, I want to make sure I get in the group because I need to. There we go. Here we go. I want to make sure that we get it to the right page. There we go. They make it hard to go to the groups now, man. It's probably one of the reasons we're reevaluating whether we're actually even going to have a Facebook group in the future. If you are if you are involved in our Facebook group, we are going to probably be moving everybody over to our community page and over the probably the rest of the year. But that's not what we're talking about today. I wanted to get that out of the way. We are live on all the platforms, so I want to make sure that you get the most out of this next 30 minutes. So I've got a question for you. Actually, I got a statement for you. You have been lied to about what change actually is. I just want that to sit for a second. You've been lied to about what change actually is. Everyone is looking for something. And everywhere you look, somebody's selling you a new strategy, a new funnel, a new system, a new training about how to generate leads and build a brand. We're inundated as real estate professionals, service providers, with how to do what we do, right? And how to be better at it, how to get more leads and all that. But none of that is where change actually starts. None of that is where your business actually takes off, where your environment changes, where your ideas change, where your thoughts about your business and your thoughts about the things that we do to make a living begin to change. Real change starts with one thing, and it's all about your perspective. Most of us hear perspective a lot because that's in the political landscape that we're in. Not this is a political post, but in the political landscape, two people can see the exact same thing and they'll have two totally different perspectives about what they saw, right? It's the reason why when they get eyewitness testimony from a crash or something like that, they want to get a lot of eyewitness testimony because our eyes can deceive us because we filter it through our own perspective. And it's one of those things that if you've never thought about it, if you've never thought about where your perspective comes from, it's probably accumulation of how you were raised, or who your parents were, who your parents weren't, were they involved, how you were treated in school, what was the environment that you went to learn your education. Do you have brothers? Do you have sisters? All of those things are early things that shape our identity, but more importantly, that also shapes our perspective of the world. And everybody has a perspective about what they see on television, what they see out in the out in the world. And it can be hot, like in Texas. If you live in Texas, like I do, right now it's starting to warm up. Right, we're going to get to 100 degrees. We get 100 degrees. Sometimes there's multiple days. Sometimes it's just a few days in the summer. And but our perspective is often different depending on who you talk to. Because here's the perfect example: we've had a very wet May and June to date. It's rained almost every day, which is very, very uncommon for our part of the country. And I heard someone say, because they're from a different state, they grew up in a different state. Oh, man, I just wish summer would come. Like, I wish the real summer would come. And I was like, what are you talking about? Do you understand when the real summer comes in Fort Worth, Texas? That means 100 degrees and dry and no rain and all the things. That's usually our summers. But it's a perspective based off of he doesn't like, he's from Southern California and he's used to, more temperate weather and weather that's not changes as much as it does in Texas. Why do I say this? Because we think, if we're not careful and we don't do the work, we think that the things that are happening to us are things that we cannot change. And that's partially true. Things that happen to us, we cannot change. But we can change the perspective of what the meaning is behind it. There's a coach, one of my coaches, Ed Milet, if you know who he is, used to say, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And when you start looking at life and you look at your business and you look at your family and you look at the world in a way that you actually see, how is this benefiting me? And it can be hard sometimes because there's some hard lessons in life and there's some situations that are not pleasant at the time. Like you may have lost your job. Your business may be suffering. You may have had an illness. My wife right now is laid up with a boot on her foot because of surgery that she had. And that was voluntary surgery, but still, it's very uncomfortable. It's something that we don't necessarily like, but we know if you live on this planet long enough, you know that almost every great thing that we evolve into happens after we've learned a lesson, after we've gone through the storm, after we've gone through a trial. People don't grow, for the most part, in an environment where there's no trial, there's no tension, there's no things that are where everything's good, right? We know this because you look at kids that grow up in a very wealthy home. If they're not careful, those kids grow up and have a less than stellar attitude towards the world, even though they were given all these things. Now, obviously, you can make that different by how you raise them and what you give them. But we've heard these stories over and over again, right? So, as we talk about this today, and as we kind of dive into the actual content of what I wanted to talk about, I want you to think about how you view the things around you, and more importantly, the things that come at us. How are we viewing them? Are we viewing them as a chance to grow? Are we a chance to learn? A chance to understand maybe why we think those things, or are we just letting it happen? Right? 95% of the people on the planet always say the 95% is going to let things happen. When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. When it's hard, it's hard. When it's easy, it's easy. And that's just the way they see the world. But if you're watching this, and hopefully you're going to watch all the way through, because at the very end, I'm going to give you a call to action that I really think is going to be important to the people that watch this call. When you step out of that comfort zone and you become a business owner, you become a service provider, you become a real estate professional, real estate agent, title marketer, a lender, maybe you run a roofing business. But when we step into those world of owning your own business or being a salesman where you kind of control your own destiny, that our perspective is not just mandatory that we keep it at a certain level of positivity, but it's almost a necessity. Because if you don't, There's so many things that happen to us, right? There's so many things that come against us anyway. And if we don't try to learn from those and we don't try to grow from those, it'll just beat us down, right? I always say most people that start their own business and become, really in the real estate industry for sure, we did because I have a coach that used to say this because they wanted to break out of prison. Prison being the W-2 lifestyle, where someone tells you what to do, where to go, what you can make, what you can't make, all those things, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a W-2 lifestyle is prison, because there are some really good jobs out there that feed our passion and purpose, and most of them have to do with sales, to be honest with you. But maybe that's not you. Maybe that's something you enjoy, is having that security, and that's great. But when you step into the 5% of the world of the United States, where you actually start to build a business, you got a lot of things coming against you. And if you take it with the perspective of woe is me, you almost always are destined to fail in your business, and probably in more than that, because there's so much that can go wrong. There's a saying that I use a lot, and it says, the cave you fear to enter. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. Most of us, we grow up. I use this analogy when I'm coaching in person. We grow up and we're changing constantly, right? If you've had kids, you know this. That, from the very moment you're aware, you're having to learn. You're having to learn language. You're going to learn how to walk. And then you're going to learn how to communicate with your parents, and you have to learn how to communicate with others. And you have to go to school, and you have to learn how to communicate with them. And you're learning new stuff. That's our constant, hopefully 18 to 22 years of just constant uncomfortable learning. But then something happens when we get into our 20s, usually, is we start getting the things that we've been working towards. We get a job, maybe we find a spouse, maybe we have kids. I had kids early on in my 20s. And then we buy a house, and then we get a car. And now we have this comfortable bubble that we build for ourselves. And most of us don't get uncomfortable ever again. We fight to be comfortable, right? Especially in America, we fight to be comfortable. And unfortunately, most studies have shown this. Especially with fitness and your health, that really our body reacts positively to being uncomfortable. That's why you get in a sauna, right? That's why you do a cold plunge. That's why you lift weights. That's why you eat certain things, and you don't eat late at night. And if you're trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle, there's certain things you eat, certain things you don't. That uncomfortableness of not just indulging in our own desires actually builds a better version of us, what I call your hero story. And so when we get into business, a lot of times, especially as real estate agents, specifically, it's been a long time since we've worked that muscle, usually 5, 10, 15, 20 years since we've actually had to get uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. And so we get into this business and we kind of think, okay, where's the comfortable zone that I want to go to? Not realizing that there really isn't a comfortable zone when you own your own business. You're constantly building. Even when you start having a reasonable amount of success, then there's new things that you have to learn. I always say this: everybody's got problems, right? Most people, 95%, are trying to get rid of their problems. But the problem with that is that we never get rid of problems. No matter how successful you are, no matter how much money you make, no matter what your life entails, we always have problems. I use the example of someone winning the lottery. When they win the lottery, they all of a sudden have a huge problem the next day, right? Like $1.7 million or billion dollars. They got a huge problem the very next day. It's just a better problem. What you're really trying to do in life is not get rid of your problems. You're trying to have better problems. And so when you have better problems, you're allowed to have a floor, what I call it, a floor, where you're able to maintaining certain living style of living, but then you're always still pushing your top. You're always pushing the edge of where you want to go, whether it's physical, whether it's your energy, whether it's your relationships, or whether it's your business idea. So that when you do that, you're able to push and you're able to actually get better, not just with your business, but in life itself. I don't know if you guys hear the dogs. The dogs are going crazy. Apologize for that if you do. So let me tell you the story that I've got that is a personal story of mine. I've never told this on a live, and I've really never told it outside of these small groups. But if you know me, if you've gotten a copy of my book, or if you've listened to any of my trainings in person, for sure, you know that my history it's a varied history. Like, I've done a lot of things, and I want to kind of mention that today. So here's my story. My story is that in my early 20s, I got married. We had a child when I was about 24, and after we started having a family, got three. I got into corporate, and I built a corporate environment, and was able to hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Thing about live. When it's live, it's live. So I rose up through the ranks pretty quickly in my 20s, and I was able to have success, company car, stock options, all the things, and was miserable. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, but it was exciting because I was moving up. But I got to a point in my late 20s that I was like, this is not what I thought my life would be like. This is not what I want to do. I didn't feel like I was serving the way I was supposed to serve the people around me, and what I was really put on this planet to do. It was the beginning of the hero story. My coaching company, the Hero Edge, that's where the beginning of it. So I quit that job, and which I wouldn't recommend until you have another one. But I quit that job and started basically at zero again. And within a couple of years, because I quit that job, I was then offered an opportunity. We built a business, me and my wife, and then that allowed me to start doing football coaching in the state of Texas with private schools, like junior high coaching, and I was an athletic director. I had time on my hands, wasn't making a ton of money, but was making, it was okay. Well, that turned into 13 years of me building two programs in the state of Texas, winning a state championship. I think you see the trophy right there. Multiple championships as an athletic director, and got to see my kids every day for 12 years because they went to the private school that I coached at. So why does that matter? Because I was known as a football coach. Like, everybody knew me as Coach Harris. So that was my identity, right? It was the thing that kept me who I was, at least I thought. And then 13 years ago, I decided my kids had graduated. I wasn't making a lot of money again. And I was saying, this is time for a change. And so I became a realtor. Now, I won't bore you with how that happened, but it happened in a pretty quick time frame. From like November to March, I went from, I don't have a license, I don't even have school to be a realtor, to I'm a full-time realtor. And now everybody knew me as Kevin the Realtor. And then within a couple of years, they asked me to start coaching agents. And then I became Coach Harris again when it came to business coaching. And so I've lived a life where I've had constant change, some self-imposed, some not, where I'm having to pivot in my own business and my own personal growth, sometimes out of necessity and sometimes because I chose to do it. So my perspective is a lot different than most people's. Does that make sense? Because I've never really gotten comfortable. Matter of fact, when I get comfortable, my personality trait is I kind of get bored. So why do I tell you all this? Because I want you to understand that just because you're doing something right now, just because you're doing something that you think you may be that's paying the bills, or that you're building towards something, doesn't mean you're always going to be doing it. And it doesn't mean you can't change when you feel like you should change. Now, I would tell you, don't believe in your feelings, because our feelings can lie to us often, just like our perspective can. But what I would tell you to do is really seek counsel, right? Number one. Number two, seek spiritual counsel. Like, if you pray. If you meditate, but understand that the world is bigger than our own 360-degree view, right? The world is connected. We all know this. We all know this in some form or fashion. And tapping into that energy, whatever you call it, I call it God, but whatever you call it, allows you to see things a little bit differently than just the thing that sits in front of us. I always used to say, why does someone hire a coach in business? Okay, because there's a lot of people that should hire a coach. In fact, I would tell you everybody needs a coach. But I tell you that because when you look at history and you look at like the sports franchises, all these big giant, all these guys that make millions of dollars playing games and have been playing them since they were probably 3 years old, even them still have a coach. Even though they've been playing their entire life, they still have a coach. Why? Opinion is because a coach at the end of the day sees things. They see the blind spots that people have. Okay. That's why a coach doesn't necessarily have to be the top producer in a company or the top guy in his industry. Can be, but doesn't have to be, because a good coach will see things differently because their perspective is different, and they live in a world of understanding that everybody has a different perspective. So when you think you're broke, you may be one deal away from your business exploding. But you don't know it. But a lot of times we sit in that little bubble of comfortableness, even though it's not necessarily fun, but we know it, and we wind up never getting out of it. So I'm going to give you some practical advice in the next 4 to 5 minutes while we've got time on this live, to maybe help you start changing your perspective, not only who you are, because who you are is not what you do. Okay, I want you to hear that. Who you are is not what you do. It's one of the greatest things I've heard a business analysts say is that, the biggest lie that we've told to at least one, if not two generations is just, find what you love to do, make money at it, and you'll never work a day in your life. So find what you love to do and then make money at it, and you'll never work a day in your life. That's actually not true. At least in my experience, it's not been true. Everything we do, no matter what it is, there's parts of it that we don't like. Like, I loved Friday Night Lights in football. I mean, it was great. I can't think, outside of my kids being born, I can't think of a bigger high than that Friday night when it's cool outside, and October, the first cool front comes in. If you've ever experienced this in football, you know what I'm talking about. And people are in the stands, and all of a sudden the players run out, and we've already done our stretching routine, and it begins. I mean, that adrenaline rush is huge. And so, but just because that adrenaline rush is huge, and just because I was a football coach, doesn't mean that that's my identity. Does that make sense? Like, I'm a dad, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a coach, I'm a hopefully servant of my Lord. I'm a lot of things, but who I am is who God made me. Who I am is why I'm on this planet. And it doesn't necessarily have to be what I do for a living. That's the lie that we've been told, is that you need to find what you're passionate about. Well, yeah, you do need to find what you're passionate about, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's how you're going to make your money. I've got a guitar hanging. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a guitar hanging over here. I love to play the guitar. I love music. Like, I'm a huge music fan. Anybody knows me, I'm always singing. I have a brain where music goes in, it never comes out. So I recite all these lyrics and stuff over just at random. It just comes out. And I love it. I love to sing, but I'm never going to make money at that. I was not gifted with, I can sing okay. I can play okay, but I wasn't gifted with the ability to have a natural singing voice. So I could have chased it because I love doing it, and I would have gone broke because that's not where my skills are. That's not where my gifting is. One of my giftings is being able to have a conversation with someone and help them get to the next level of whatever they're trying to get to their next level of performance, their next level of a business strategy, that's one of the things that I've done for almost 30 years. And so, and I've not always made money doing that. Okay. There's other things that I've done that really, almost always you work what you love to do into what you do, but it doesn't necessarily have to be what you make money at. Is that making sense? So the reason I'm saying that is because when people get into business, they think that if I don't love it, then I need to figure out how to change it. And it's like you need to actually think about where you need your resources coming from, and outside of something that's causing you physical or emotional harm, it may be something that you're not necessarily in love with, or parts of it anyway. Like I love to help people find and sell homes. I love that. I love to do it. I like because it's the interaction with the people and the deal and being able to craft an offer and things like that. I love doing that. But there's parts of being a real estate agent that are not glamorous, and nor are they great. Lead generation is one of them. But if I don't lead generate, if I don't have conversations with people, which is what I call it, then I'm not going to be able to do the thing that I do love. Does that make sense? So if I love going to the beach, but I'm never going to make money going to the beach. But if I make enough money, I can go to the beach. Does that make sense? So I want you to think about a couple things in this live. Your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. Jim Rohn says that, if you know who Jim Rohn is. Tony Robinson's coach. Your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. So what's the strategy that you can use to start changing or identifying maybe the things in your perspective that are not serving you? Okay. I don't think we have to always do a big giant change. Like it's not, you're not necessarily have to be saved every day in the sense of going from one direction and completely doing a 180, but there are adjustments that we need to make. So maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe it's just something that you need to adjust. But how do we start doing that? Here's the path. Number one, once you've identified that your perspective or parts of it is not serving you or what you're trying to accomplish, start looking into ways, start looking at things from more of a logical standpoint. Okay. Not necessarily always being logical, because we are emotional creatures. We make decisions off of emotion, not off of logic. But when you actually start looking at things that happen, you realize that a lot of times the things that we tie emotions to and think that it's happening to us, it's just an event, right? One of the things that I've heard and I use quite a bit is we can't change how we see things, but we can change what we say about them. We can change the next thing. Like maybe we see something and our initial response is, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. Can't change that. Okay. Or it's hard to change it. It's harder to change that. What we can do is to step back and go, wait a minute. Let me logically think about this. Is it the hardest thing I've ever done? Is it the hardest thing I've ever gone through? Probably not. Right. And so it allows us to be a little bit more moderate in our conversation. Again, non-political, just moderate to ourselves instead of blowing up all the time or seeing something that triggers us. Tony Robbins says this: no one can trigger you, because when someone triggers you, that means that you're reacting to something somebody said. So it's actually you who are being triggered. You're the one triggering yourself. Think about that for a second. That's a deep one, right? You think about that and you'll be like, oh my gosh. How you react to something is actually your responsibility. So if someone says something on TV or someone says something to you on your face and all those kind of things, that's why kids get in fights when they're young, because they don't realize that they actually can affect how they react to it. So when your business is not going great, okay, when you don't have any leads in your pipeline, when maybe you had the door slammed on you 4 or 5 times on a sales presentation, 5 different in a row, instead of seeing that as a negative, maybe stepping back and logically thinking what is actually going on, because usually it has to do with how we're doing it, or what we're saying or not saying, and all those things. And as you get better at doing those things, your perspective starts to change. You start to realize that the world is not out to get you. It's actually working for you. But we've got to learn not just the good lessons, the easy lessons, but the hard lessons too, to be better. So that's number one. Number two, you start actually being called toward the next step, which is moving. Now, once you understand and you see a different perspective, now you start creating movement towards the actual problem. Does that make sense? So one, understanding your perspective. So start doing the work of stepping back and being a little bit more logical when something happens that you're trying to either change or you don't like or something like that. But then start moving towards how do you actually solve whatever it is that's in front of you. Okay. So if you, let's say you're doing a lead gen and you get a no and you get a no and you get a no and you get a no. Well, saying the same thing over and over again and get a different result is probably the definition of insanity. At least that's what they say. But maybe changing how you say it, changing maybe a couple words or how you intro yourself, things like that. And all of a sudden something will happen. You'll be like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I got a different response because you're thinking logically about it and not emotionally. I read Stoic books all the time. I'm not saying you have to be a Stoic, but I am saying that we as people, including me, will have a tendency to react emotionally to things before we really need to, before we actually should act, basically. The two most important days in your life are the day that you were born and the day you found out, and the day you find out why. Mark Twain. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. If you haven't found out why you were born yet, that's some good work to do in 2026. I can help you with that. I've got some resources and it's part of the stuff that I do. But figuring out who you are and why you're here is the purpose of what we are destined to do. You were born in this world at this time. No one's ever been born like you. No one's ever going to be born like you. Even as a twin, they're two distinct people from an inside perspective. So if that's the case, why? Finding that answer or doing the work to start to find that answer starts moving you closer to your hero story, is what I say. So here's the call to action. I want you to start. So number one, let me recap real quick and then we'll end the call. I want you to start looking at your perspective, maybe when something happens, taking one or two events that happen throughout the week and just stepping back and looking at them logically versus emotionally. Number two, start moving when that happens, start moving towards solving whatever that problem or whatever that opportunity of learning is that's happening to you. And then lastly, what are you going to do today? Okay, so here's the call to action. I want you to, if you're watching this, I want you to start doing some of that work on yourself. I want you to start doing some of that work on who you are, not what you do for a living, but who you are. Not that you're a mom, not that you're, a realtor or an inspector or a business owner. All those things are part of, that's how we express ourselves. That's an expression of who we are, but it's not who we are. Who you are is your essence. Who you are is why you're on this planet. Who you are is your destiny. Who you are is your purpose. And if you'll start doing that work today, 10 to 15 minutes a day, I've got some books I can recommend to you. The Power of Thee, my book, has a lot of information about that. Some worksheets and some exercises on just doing that work. It's some of the hardest work you'll ever do, but it's also the most rewarding work you'll ever do. Because once you figure it out, you are free of all the other stuff. You're free of having to think that if you lose a job, you lose your identity. Or you change jobs, you change your identity. You don't. You're the same person. Good, bad, or indifferent. Hopefully good. And guys, I want to be here for you. So if you like this, please, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you're watching this on Facebook, go over to YouTube to subscribe to the channel. We're going to start putting stuff on there other than just this call and some shorts this week. And if you're watching this in the Marketing Edge, thank you so much for watching it. And if you have any questions, you guys know how to get a hold of me. My information's down in the description as well as in the marketing group that I run. All right. You guys be blessed. Have a great rest of your week. It is the middle of June or almost there. And we got summer in full force. Everybody's on vacations and stuff. So if you watch this while you're sitting next to a beach, know that I envy you. All right. You guys be blessed. Have a great rest of your week. Peace and love.